Datenschutz for Mittelstand, or in English, data protection. It is a long debate, and since the GDPR or the Datenschutzgrundverordnung came into play, there was long discussions who should do what in which conditions. In this episode of the Digital Mittelstand, Ralf Becker explains you as an expert on topic what exactly needs to be done. Hi, my name is Jan, and I am the founder of 360 Digital Transformation, where we help small and medium businesses, so Mittelstand, to optimize, digitalize, and automate their business processes. Today, I have Ralf Becker with me. He is the founder and CEO of Daschug GmbH, with his team serving almost 100 Mittelstand clients when it comes to data protection and information security. I am more than excited to hear what he wants to say, and without any further ado. Hello, Ralf. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Khan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your time on this Saturday. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Ralf Becker. I'm the founder and the CEO of Daschug. We're a small company, small consultancy based in Darmstadt, so very much in the middle of Germany, near Frankfurt, Mannheim, Heidelberg, and so on. And we are serving as data protection officers and information security officers to mid-sized businesses throughout Germany. And so we are serving around 100 businesses, and with a small team of specialists in that area. And I think this is what is me and what my business.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. But 100 clients, and you told me mainly from Mittelstand, so that's already quite interesting. But I would like to start with the name. Why Daschug?
Yeah, why Daschug? That's something many people ask us. Has it something to do with Darmstadt? Yeah, so something it could be Darmstädter Schutzgesellschaft or something. Yeah, actually not. Yeah, so we first had another name which had nothing to do with Datenschutz and was more like media something. And we searched for a name which is affiliated with data protection and privacy and so on. And people are searching in Google, and people are searching in Google for probably also for the Datenschutzgesetz, which could be an abbreviation, Daschug. Yeah, but this doesn't exist in Germany. We have the Bundesdatenschutzgesetz, BDSG, but we don't have the Datenschutzgesetz. They have in Austria, I think they have a DSG. But this could be an abbreviation. And a lot of people are searching together with data protection and privacy for the expression Daschug. They can't know us. So we decided, well, this is a virtual word. This is a brand, and now it's our brand.
Yeah, it's very forward thinking, and I really like the way you choose this name, Daschug, and it makes sense. Of course, there is DSGVO, but this is slightly different, as you said, Daschug. And people can easily remember the name. At least I remember it easily.
Yeah, that was the reason behind. Yeah, we need something which is short, which is easy to remember, which is actually a brand.
Yeah, that's great. And right now we can come to the questions more in terms of data protection, GDPR, and to start with, how should Mittelstand be aware when it comes to data protection and GDPR?
Yeah, so I think data protection is a thing which is more and more important in the future. With the GDPR, Europe has the first very much sophisticated ruling and regulation on data protection and privacy in the world, and you see that it is copied everywhere in the world. The Americans, where data protection is a state law but not a federal law, They come up with now Californian privacy law in Texas, in many states. There are initiatives for having a privacy law, and it's yeah, sometimes it's very much a copycat of what we have here as GDPR. Even the Chinese now start up with data protection laws. It is something which is coming up as we more and more rely on data, as we more and more exchange data. So this is for sure something Mittelstand should be aware of, but they also shouldn't panic about that. So when GDPR comes up, there was, well, I would say it was really panic in the market. Oh my God, there comes something and it comes tomorrow almost. Well, we had 2 years of transition time, but as always, you don't care about if the deadline is not approaching. And this is why for many businesses, it comes as sudden as Christmas. Then it's they are pretty late and resources are not so much available, and then it gets expensive. And but it was panic, and the panic was not, well, so what has happened? Now we have 2.5 years GDPR, and the world didn't stop turning. What was, many people feared that, that there were very expensive lawsuits and fines, and now it isn't. So, well, from my very much experience I have, I must say, so you have to do really plenty to get a fine. So to ignore authorities, don't respect authorities, things like this. I think if you really do your homework and if you really show that you are caring about this, there is no reason for panicking. But you should do something. So do nothing maybe is not the cheapest option in the long view. It depends how much your contract as a managing director is. Obviously. So Mittelstand or the mid-cap company, and this is what is very much our clients are mostly in the small and medium business. I think this is very much what is our day-to-day business, where we serve as external data protection officers and external information security officers. I think this is very much where we have our experiences, and where we also can help companies. And usually it starts with just check up. So where are we standing right now? Are we pretty good? Are we, well, not so good? Or are we really? So do we have major risks? I think this is interesting for many managers coming in, just to know where do we stand. This is one of the aspects. Regarding the information security, it's also something like a internal audit that the management just wants to know how good is our IT department really. So if you don't know how it's working, it's hard to evaluate how good supplier or even the own staff actually is. So this is what is our business. I think what is our advantage in this is, and what also Mittelstand should be aware of, that. Let me put it a different way. You have to understand that there is no such thing than a 100% compliant company. This just doesn't exist. It's just the same thing as there is no healthy human on earth. Somebody who you think is healthy, he isn't examined long enough. Same for compliance. 100% compliant. I've never met a company which is 100% compliant in all aspects. I doubt that this exists. Yeah. So if there's anybody listening to your podcast and say, yeah, we are, just please come up to me. Yeah. So, so this means that you have to accept certain level of risks. Yeah? And I think this is something what distinguishes us from classical law companies. So for a lawyer, a risk is evil. Yeah, is something you have to avoid. And so if you are a practitioner, you have to say, well, I have to prioritize. I have to prioritize my resources. I have to prioritize, and I also evaluate risk, which risk level is acceptable for conducting my business. Because if I exclude every kind of risk, I can't do my business anymore. Therefore, I have to evaluate this. And this is what GDPR forces you to do, to evaluate the risk, but not only your own risk, but also the risk of the data subject. So risk analysis from a, let's say, management view is a different view than the risk analysis you do in GDPR, where you evaluate the risk for the data subject. So don't mix this up. And this is why risk management systems are often not so suited for privacy, because it's just another perspective on the thing. This is so accepting risk and accepting that you have certain, let's say, open risks. This is okay. So don't try to eliminate every kind of risk, but be aware that you have some risks there and monitor them. Which means that we have, for almost all of our clients, we have to-do lists or risk lists of carried risks, which are part of the reporting to the management. So each reporting, the management gets a list and say, hey, these are the decisions you already took. Where we said, well, you should do something here. And we agreed that we don't do it now, or that you postponed it, or you just said, no, it doesn't fit to our company, or whatever. Just have a look at this risk. Are you still feeling comfortable with this? And if the management nods and says, yeah, we are still comfortable with this, everything is fine. So in the end, it's a decision of the management. What is, I think in the banking world, they're talking about appetite for risk. How much appetite, I think it's a very nice wording. Now, what Buffin and so use there, appetite for risk. But basically it's this. Perhaps it's the best word for this. And there are entrepreneurs which are, of course, starting up. And well, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. I don't think it's you can get around that. So accepting risks is, I think, a big thing. So, and you started with what should a Mittelstand also do and be aware of. First, of course, do your homework. Or, well, care about data protection. This means that you have to deal with it. That means that you have to draw up what are your obligations. And do it. And if you can't do it yourself, have somebody doing it. Whether you do this internally and choose somebody internally responsible for this, fine. Or you have external support. This is what we do in, let's say, different levels of support. There are cases where we are just, let's say, the advisors, where we bring in external expertise and supporting an existing internal data protection officer. That works. So we have regular geofixers. We call this geofixers on a regular basis. So there's a serial appointment in Outlook. So it's I can tell you where I'm in 15 years at the first Wednesday each month. I can tell you where I'm. Because this is a permanent geofix I have with clients. So, and this doesn't end. Yeah? So, because there's also something to understand for Mittelstand. Data protection is not a project which has an end date. Yeah? So it's a management system. Yeah? And as I know, you're supporting TSACs. You know what? I don't have to explain you what a management system is. That you have probably. There are some listeners to your podcast who don't know. But yeah, so therefore, in a management system, you have this plan, do, check, act cycle. So a process of continuously improvement. And this is the same with data protection, that you continuously see what has changed, evaluate what has changed, what can we do better, what are issues we evaluate different. Yeah? For example, the risk, where we said the last time, no, come on, this is something we postpone. So we just started up with a new ERP system, and so we don't need to have a data deletion concept right from the start. It's okay if we have this, let's say, after a couple of years. Yeah? So yeah, but at some time you have to deal with it. Yeah? So these are things you postpone, but they come up again. Yeah? You need some system sounds technically some way to organize yourself, that things like this don't get lost. Yeah, and it very much helps if you have somebody who is caring about this. And as I said, it could be internally, it could also be externally. We're in the most cases, we're externally appointed as data protection officers, and we also work very much hands-on. That means that we bring our Jira and Confluence platform, or well, both Atlassian products. Most of your listeners probably know about Atlassian, and also, well, a couple of years ago it was quite unknown, but I think they also profit from Corona as a means of collaboration. And I think their stock prices also soared. So yeah, it was that's my private investment guideline. Invest in companies you use yourself.
Yeah. Totally agree. But thank you for this comprehensive answer. And just want to summarize a little bit. So Mittelstand shouldn't panic against GDPR. They should do their homework, and they can assign someone internally, Datenschutzbeauftragter, or externally, or even a hybrid model, an external data protection officer supporting the internal data protection officer is also possible, and hybrid system. And let's take this homework and elaborate it slightly more. For example, which criteria Mittelstand should have while choosing software, like popular software like Office 365, Salesforce? You mentioned Atlassian products like Jira, Confluence. What criteria should Mittelstand have?
Yeah, I think of course, you're here in the cloud business. You're referring very much to cloud services, as you said. And I think these platforms, these public cloud platforms, have been very much on the rise in the last years. So, and there are many data protection officers say, well, cloud, well, that's risky, and don't do that. Do everything on-prem, and it's much more safer. Yeah, I do not agree with this. And let's say not always. So, for example, if you are a mid-sized business and you operate your own Exchange server, you need to have staff who knows what to do there. You have to maintain an Exchange server. Exchange server is always exposed to the internet. And at least if you don't have a proxy before that, and fetch the mails from some other post boxes and have a very much complicated solution. If you use the Exchange as it is supposed to do, you have an exposed system to the network. And there are so many patches which needs to be applied very fast. And you need a skilled IT department for that. And if you don't have this, then outsource this. I'm pretty sure that Microsoft has much more knowledge on how to operate an Exchange server than, let's say, a small software IT company. Now, there is still enough stuff to do for these small IT companies.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't want to
Definitely.
to ruin their business, but yeah, to be frank, yeah, it does not really make sense for, let's say, 30 people to operate their own Exchange server. Yeah, it only makes sense for the IT guy. Yeah, and often this is an external guy, and he has probably different kinds of interests in this. Yeah, cloud business as a data protection officer, well, yeah, many think cloud is evil, yeah, and cloud doesn't exist. Cloud is always the PC of someone else, yeah, and you know all this. Yeah? But on the other hand, yeah, you know, cloud is coming, yeah, and if you see there is an avalanche coming down to you, you can't say I hate snow, yeah. It just doesn't work, yeah, because yeah, you have to adapt to the trends which you have, yeah, or you won't be taken for serious. Yeah? So therefore, I understand as our job is how to reduce the risks of using cloud systems as much as possible. Yeah, this is the compliance side, but this is also the technical side. Starting with the second one because it's easier. The technical side, yeah, you need to rely on your service providers. If this is a company like Salesforce, like Microsoft, Atlassian, everything's fine. I think they know what they are doing, and if they have a major breach, that they have as many problems as Volkswagen has. So if they don't do their job properly, they have giant problems. So the problem is with the smaller companies, and these are companies you have to trust. Do you trust a startup which very rapidly develops a very cool app, yeah, and says, well, about security we are caring later? Might not be the best idea if you put your sensitive company data into this. So it makes sense to ask to do an audit, yeah, at the supplier, yeah, to ask them for certificates. Do you have a certificate ISO 27000? In the automotive industry, you have this TISAX, and there are a lot of things what you can do and what you can ask. So this is, let's say, one aspect. The other aspect you ask for is a compliance thing from data protection. So first of all, I would say in most cases, we are talking about a data processorship. This means that the service provider acts on behalf of the client. Yeah, so all the data I put into Salesforce is not Salesforce data, it's my data, even it's on the platform of Salesforce. So, and yeah, so we are talking about a data processorship, and this means, according to Article 28 of GDPR, you have to have some of these data processor agreements, in German Auftragsverarbeitung. So
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the bigger and, let's say, more sophisticated companies in this area, they have this usually included in their terms and conditions, or they have this as a download on their web page. Sometimes you can right away sign such an agreement via DocuSign on the web page of the service provider. So I've seen this at so many sites, even at smaller companies. I see this, that they have included a DocuSign into their web page where you can sign these data protection things. Or take Microsoft, for example. They have included this in the online service terms, OST. In the online service terms, there is this agreement is included there. So you don't have to care about that. But if you have smaller companies, you should ask for this, because probably they're not so much prepared. And you know, if a solution is sold Yeah, you can. You have to run after it. So ask for it before you sign the contract. It's much easier to get a grip on it before that. So data protection agreement. Second is location. Where are these data stored and where is this service provider located? Yeah. If it's in the EU, everything is fine. Yeah, it does not need to be in Germany. So if you want to have a German web hoster or so because you feel more familiar with it, fine, you can do. But there's legally, it's no difference between a German and let's say a French data center provider. Yeah? If you have a Hetzner or if you have a OVH in France. It does not really is different because it's both. It's EU, and EU is one single market. Yeah, this is the great thing about the EU. So, but the problem is that there are many US services out there. And if you have a US service, well, then you need to do more. So there are a couple of countries outside the US which are accepted as safe countries, or countries with an adequate level of data protection, like Switzerland, Canada, in parts, Japan, Korea. They are now negotiating with Korea, but the US is not. Yeah, and this is the problem. Yeah. That's the problem. Where there's a lot of people talking about that. A lot of people talking about that there is quite unlimited access to data from US companies, from criminal investigators, from law enforcement agencies and authorities. Yeah, I think this is the correct word for this. And I think this is one of the major concerns. Yeah? And this is why, for example, an Austrian court recently ruled that it's not possible to use Google Analytics. Yeah. So, okay, we can discuss about what is the interest of, let's say, NSA analyzing the web logs of a specific website. But this is what's in the GDPR. Yeah. So, but still, there are some means of making the level of data protection adequate. One of these means are the standard contractual clauses, in short, SCC. These are standard clauses provided by the European Commission. And with this, the data importers, so the US, I would say US, but could also a Brazilian, Venezuelan, or whatever company, South African or whatever. So the non-EU company says, yeah, we will adapt to the EU level of data protection. Yes, and in brackets, unless we are obliged to other things due to local law. So this is the problem. Yeah? So what a US company will have to decide whether they adhere this contract and obey the EU law or the US law. And if you get a national security letter, so one of these gag orders to hand over the data to the law enforcement agencies, then you will, as a US company, you will for sure adhere US law. So this is the problem. And this is where the Schrems II ruling of the CJEU, of the Court of Justice of the EU, so our highest court we have in the EU, which comes into place. And in this ruling, it says, well, you can't just send it over. So the basic ruling was there was a contract between the EU and the US. It was called Data Privacy Shield. It was the second contract of this type. So the first contract was downed by Mr. Schrems, an Austrian privacy activist, and this was the Schrems I ruling. And now we have the Schrems II ruling after they re-established this contract. Now also the second contract is not valid anymore. And in this decision, the CJEU ruled that it is also not enough just to have these standard contractual clauses, but you have to do additional measures. So, and this is what you very often have in these legal things. You should do something, but you don't know what to do concrete. What does it mean, additional measures? Okay, you can, one example could be you encrypt your data. Okay, this helps you if you want to do, let's say, offline or a remote data backup. Yeah, if you want to do a data backup on your systems, it's okay. Yeah, but if your systems are hacked and also your data is encrypted, it's not good. Or if your site burns, you have a fire, so your site is destroyed, then it helps to have a backup of your data somewhere else. So where could that be? For example, Amazon. Amazon Web Services. You can't produce storage so cheap yourself. So therefore, many businesses, they don't operate tapes anymore. They send their data to Amazon. And there it helps to say, okay, yeah, we encrypt this data. We just encrypt everything we send to Amazon. And we encrypt this, and the key is stored somewhere else. There it helps. But if you're using Salesforce, it does not really help to encrypt your data on the platform, because then you can do nothing with it. So there it's absolutely rubbish. It doesn't help you. So therefore comes now the TIR into play. TIR is the abbreviation for transfer impact analysis, which means you have to evaluate the risk of a data transfer. Is this significant? What is the level of data protection in that country? And I can tell you, you can make a big fuss about this. So there are example documents for performing a TIR, which go to, let's say, 30, 40 pages. It's really amazing. And it's valid only for a short time, because law is changing. And as law changes, you basically you have to adapt this. So this is, it's difficult. So on the other hand, you can, of course, you can do a TIR, you can write something down, you can really evaluate, is it okay to send this data over? You probably want to distinguish very low-level data like weblogs, Google Analytics. You perhaps it's just calendar issues or something. Or if you have really, really hard health data or criminal records or psychological data and stuff like this, where you really evaluate people, I think this is a different matter. And you really need to distinguish about the, let's say, the sensitivity of the data you send over. And by this, I think perhaps you can carry the risk, let's say, for the time being, and monitor this issue, how it evolves. And this is also something what I tell my my clients and the management of my clients, where I say, look, until now, there is no really hard decision from a major court that you have to stop this, that you can't use Office 365, Azure Active Directory, Salesforce, and all this stuff anymore. By the way, many of these services have now also the option of the EU location. For example, in Office 365, you should be take care that you have a EU data location. This helps you in most of the products within Office 365. As my understanding is right now, and we are talking now in start of February 22, might be different in a couple of weeks. But as of now, my understanding is that, for example, all those Azure Active Directory services are still going to the US and are not staying in the EU. Yeah. So if there's any listener of the podcast who has other information, just let me know. But this is the information I have right now. So you can't exclude it anyway. Salesforce, I think they have in Amsterdam or so. I think they have a possibility of data location, and this is also the reason why you, as a European customer, often make your contract with companies somewhere in Europe. For example, Amazon is Luxembourg, and most of the others are in Ireland. Why Ireland? Because Ireland has a nice tax regime for such kind of services. So if you want to save taxes as an online business, you go to Ireland, and they have a very weak data protection enforcement. So these are the, let's say, competitive advantages of Ireland. So let's say you have, so if you have, let's say, an Ireland counterpart in your service agreement and you have a data location in Europe, well, it's a European service. Yeah. No problem with standard contractual clauses and transfer impact assessment and so on. But let's say this doesn't exist. Yeah, or one of those is not possible. You have maybe a European location, but the company still is in Australia or is in Atlassian or is in the US. Then you might have to do this. As I said, there is no hard court decision, let's say, of a major court, that this is not legal in this way. Yeah, there are these hints of the CJEU in the Schrems 2 decision, but there is no hard ruling on, so you can't use Office 365 anymore. And I have a strong belief in the US cloud industry that if this comes up, they will fight until the end to save their European revenues. These are billions. And for billions, you can employ a lot of lawyers. And if this really happened, it will get a big, big bang. And you will have this as a first topic in the Tagesschau, in the daily news. And so you will get aware of this. You will hear about this. And until this is fought to the latest court decision, you have time. Because if it goes through the courts, it will take 4 years, 5 years, something. Time enough for contingency planning. As long as you are not the trial case. But you have time for contingency. This is what I say. And within this time of contingency, the US cloud players will try to find a solution for the European customers. They won't give up the European revenues.
So as you said in the first part, there is no need to panic, right?
There is no need to panic. You have to do something. You have to make your homework, that you can show up something that you have done if somebody asks. But I doubt that an authority will fine you if you have done your homework as far as you could do. And it's just about the principle of, the data goes to the US. I think they will search for adversary on the, let's say, what's the word for it, on the floor of the court, which has appropriate legal firepower. So that you're not I doubt that you as a small company or mid-sized company, that you will be the case, and make history in law. So this is something. This is an expression my clients actually fear, as I say, you can do this, but you can then make history in law. They, oh no.
Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. But summarizing all this and making tangible examples, how does daschug help Mittelstand? Can you please explain this by giving use cases from your clients from Mittelstand?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So we have a lot of companies which are not focused on a special area. So we have service companies as well as production companies in various parts of business. Yeah. What are cases like this? So first of all, when I remember when GDPR came into force in 2018, there was a lot of uncertainty how to do things, because is nothing to find. Yeah, so now we have, after 2.5 years, there a lot of stuff has been written by lawyers, by students, by professors, and so on. So now you have something what you can read and how you can orient. But this was not the case back in 2018. And we had, for example, with one of our clients who does produce medical tests, and they need to do medical surveys. How to do this? So and nobody could or wanted to say something, but our client wants to proceed. They had new ideas of product ready for market, and they need these surveys, this testing, this large scale testing. And we just proceeded the way we said, well, we can say this is okay from our view, and we always said, okay, if you're not agree with it, please tell us. Nobody told us, and we got through with it. So sometimes you just need to be encouraged and go on. But ask them. So do you think there is a problem? And they can't say anything or didn't want to, whatever. So we got on. So then there are a lot of, let's say, interesting new ideas, new businesses, or new concepts on how to do things. So we all know this Tinder app, where you can swipe, dating app, and there's a company who use this as a recruiting app. Very interesting. So you are offered jobs. And you can swipe if you want it or not. If you find it okay or not. So the thing is, if you swipe, I like it, automatically an application was issued to this company. And then the company came back to the applicant and say, hey, we received your data and thank you for your application. And we had got tons of requests saying, hey, I don't know you. Who are you? Why do you have my data? And then you start up to explain, you used this app and you swiped and you saw our job and you swiped, that's okay. And that according to the terms and conditions, this is application. And then they say, okay. But you have to talk half an hour to somebody who is really, it causes a lot of discussions. Interesting also in the area of recruiting is also these, let's say, online testings. There are things like robo recruiting or gamification, evaluation of applicants. And so you do some kinds of online games there. And afterwards, you get a report. How much are you multitasking fähig?
Capable.
Capable, thank you. And how much are you able to concentrate on your thing? And how well do you react under stress? And how much is your thinking structured? Just about 20 minutes online gaming, they can say all this. So this is a black box. They say, hey, the mechanisms behind this is our business secret. Might be, but it's really hard to have a report like this. And what should never happen is that you decide based on such a report if you stop this application process and say no, thank you. or not, yeah, because this is just an indication. It can only be an indication, because this is really something, as I said, black box, without knowing anything what's happening there. There are, in fact, evaluation platforms for applicants which are a bit more to, let's say, to standards, which we know, like Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. This is a scheme where you put people in to see if they are more a leader or more, let's say, a working bee. To characterize it this way, because if you have two leaders in a team, yeah, they will always be against each others, and if you have a lot of working bees in a team but no leader, they will work, but probably in the wrong direction. So it could make sense to do this. Yeah. I think this is at least a bit more from the analytical view, and from the science view, it's much more based why it comes to a decision like this. Yeah, and the questionnaires behind this are pretty much elaborated. I think if you use something which is really scientifically approved, and not some fancy black box. So that's the message. Yeah, so then we have a lot of breaches, for example. Yeah, we have breaches by accident. Yeah, so sending stuff to the wrong people, or sending the wrong stuff to all people.
Yeah, that's more dangerous.
Yeah, actually, we had one customer who was extremely proud that he opened, together with the Works Council, a own vaccination center on site of the factory. Yeah, and very big bus, and very proud to do that. And they were sending around a letter to all employees saying, hey, yeah, you have now the chance to get vaccinated during work times, and please register here for an appointment, and so on. Mm-hmm. And nobody saw that very small in the top line, it was it was a line, cancellation of work contract with Mr. So-and-so with the date. The Works Council signed it, both of the managing directors signed it, and nobody saw that. And it was sent out to over 600 people. Shit happens. What should you say? Yeah, so things like this, yeah, wrong form. Yeah, just used the wrong form and didn't killed and deleted everything they should. Yeah, but putting the sheet where you have your salaries on, yeah, and your taxes and the stuff, putting these into a new machine where it puts into envelopes, but putting it in the wrong way. So the numbers appear in this window. And give this to the post office. So yeah, things like these happen. Yeah. Okay, you also have things, data breaches after an incident. Of course, yeah. We have a web store within our clientship, which has been hacked. Yeah, so the service provider, they put in some code which was obviously not properly approved and not properly reviewed, because SQL injection was possible, and by this SQL injection, the emails and the password hashes have been stolen from the system. And the passwords have not been sorted. So, and if they're not being sorted, you can very easily get back to the original. There are rainbow tables out there, and yeah. First of all, check your suppliers. Do they have appropriate process for implementing new code? Is there a 4 eyes policy that somebody checks the code which is implemented? Maybe do a pen test, and stuff like this. So this is the one thing. The other thing is how to react on this. Yeah, and while I was discussing with the management that well, we lost 600K, 600,000 600,000 data, what do you say, data lines of data. Yeah? Yeah, while I was discussing with the management if this is critical or not, the leader of the social media team came in and said, well, we don't have access to any of our Facebook, Twitter, whatever channels. And everywhere is another phone number and everywhere is another email address. Yeah, so, and this was the decision not only to notify the obligatory notification to authorities, which you have to issue within 72 hours usually. Not only this, but also to write to all of the 600,000 customers on the web shop, well, your password has been lost. And of course, briefing the back office and the contact center. So we hired a contact center, and they have a contact center which need to be briefed that, hey, there could be a lot of very annoyed calls there. Yeah, and what to tell them. Yeah. There's, by this way, we should come up about risks on this later. Yeah, or maybe just as one or two words on that. Yeah, I don't think that the risks with data protection is so much that you have fines from authorities. I don't think it's serious to say, hey, there is a 20 million fine or 4% of revenue. That's a Lex Google and a Lex Facebook. This doesn't apply to mid-sized companies. What really is relevant is if these data subjects come up and say, hey, I want from you a compensation because I have a problem. Yeah, now you lost my data, I lost control over my data, and I have a problem now. Somebody stealing my identity, whatever. Yeah, many people use the same password everywhere. So if you once lost your password, the attacker has access to your email account and can set back all the other passwords. So let's say for the consumer business, multi-factor authentication, rarely. Yeah, I would say rarely. So of course, Apple has it, Google has it, but I'm not sure even if Amazon has it.
They have it, but it's rarely used. They have it because I use it, I know from there, but it's rarely used. And also, maybe one thing to add, it's also the reputation of the company that you are subject to a data breach.
Yeah, but there I have to say, at this special case, my experience on this is from this special case. A lot of people, let's say from the medical business, because it's about medical stuff, not medical data, but let's say medical literature also. Yeah, and a lot of people said, thank you for informing me. Because I'm also pretty much sure that a lot of businesses don't inform their customers about such a breach because they fear exactly this. Yeah, and therefore I think it's not only a legal obligation, but I think it's also an ethical obligation to inform your customers, hey guy, you might have a problem if you use your password everywhere. Because I lost it. Sorry for that, I lost it. Yeah, and you wouldn't have a problem if you had a different password everywhere.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, so I don't recommend to blame it to the customers. This is not my intention, but you need to be honest with your customer. Yeah, and not only it's because that it's the law to do so, but I think it's also an ethical thing. Yeah, are you really a good guy or just want to make profit? Yeah.
Thank you for the use cases, Ralf, and we are quite over time, but I really like the use cases, so I didn't want to interrupt at all, kept my silence and listened to them. But can you quickly give us your top suggestion for Mittelstand when it comes to data protection?
Yeah. So I think whether you talk about data protection or also IT security, and you saw this is very close, yeah, to each other. So both are compliance things. Yeah, I just have do your homework. Yeah, this is I think the major out call I have to make. Yeah, do your homework. Be prepared. Yeah? Be prepared for cases of ransomware. More than 50% of our customers faced attacks on ransomware. These are those where I know it that they have had problems with this. So there might be even a couple more. Yeah? So it's not the question if, but it's the question when you will get hit by this. Be prepared for this. Be prepared that you have let's say playbooks, Notfallpläne, Drehbücher, that you have playbooks in your drawer, that you know what everybody has to do in such a case. I think this is one thing. Be prepared that people start asking about privacy issues and complaining also if you don't do your homework and if you don't act seriously about this. If you don't made up your mind and do things you shouldn't do or would at least could be questioned. Be prepared that people ask, and especially in such kind of breaches. There are law firms outside there which are specialized on these kinds of breaches, representing thousands of potential customers, acquiring these customers to sue you, not because of one, but because in the name of thousands. And well, if you have, let's say, if you compensate a customer with, let's say, a couple of 100, 200, 500 euros, that's okay. But if they come up with 20, 30, 50, 100,000 customers, it gets critical. So be prepared on that. Think about also not only the management, but also be prepared about applicants asking questions. Make sure that also these processes are clear when the applicant data is deleted, stuff like this. And beware of, let's say, angry employees leaving the company.
Yes, that's so
this is also quite a risk. So this is because they know what problems you have and what lists are on your risk-taken list. So this is. Think before you pass on data to service providers which are not so safe as they think they are. I don't know why, but I'm always a bit, let's say, skeptical if I see a big mark on a service provider's webpage, GDPR compliant. Because why do you say this? I think it should be normal that they are. But
I feel
okay. Make your backups. In terms of ransomware, we had some very serious cases last year, and really make your backups and care about them. Make sure they are actually done and they are actually valuable and they are usable, and perhaps also they are air-gapped, so that if somebody breaks into your network and gets your domain controller, that they don't get to your backup. And I think this is a very nice English word, air-gapped. I don't know if we have something in Germany, that there is a gap of air that is not offline. For example, that is also English word. That is not connected to the network. So this is something where the old tape drives maybe get another chance. I know it's terrible old-fashioned, but something like that, at least it's that an attacker doesn't get to your backups. Make this clear. Make tests of this and test if really the backup works. So I had the one customer who brings the tapes every Friday to the bank and locks it in the bank. And then he got hit by a ransomware, and he had to acknowledge that there has never been a file on this tape.
Yeah, backup restores are very crucial.
Yeah. And of course, sensitize your staff. Yeah. So the most valuable protection as well in data protection as in privacy is people in the business who know what they are doing and who are sensitized to these things. Yeah. That they know when they need to think about data protection, and they know who to call. So they don't need to have the solution right away, but it helps to speak with somebody who has some experience in this and does this. So train your staff in data privacy, but train your staff also in security. For example, do phishing simulations, do tabletop exercises, whatever. Care about these issues.
Yeah. Thank you, Ralf. Thank you for these suggestions. And definitely, backup restores are crucial. As you mentioned with these tape example, but also the employee awareness is very important, because you can buy 100,000 euros worth security software, but if your password is your name and 123, then it won't change anything.
And if they don't know which link to click on and which better not. Same with the things like fake CEO. I have a company, they invested a lot in IT security. And yes, the IT security is great. But then they got an invoice for a secret project of the management, and they paid these invoices. Approximately 1 million. And then it came out this project doesn't exist. So also this, I think, is very, very simple to tell your staff, hey, look, these things exist. Not this project, but these methods of
phishing, social engineering,
crime, these fake CEO attacks, they exist, and they exist also at us.
Yes.
We are also a target. So nobody is too small and too insignificant to be a target.
And hackers have plenty of time. Have plenty of time. So, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. True. So, and it's got easy to train staff. So you don't need to have seminars for days. There are e-trainings out there which are really worth the name, which are really, let's say, interactive and with short videos and where you can really do something. So it's not like that you have to put all your staff into a day seminar or so.
You're right.
Times have changed there, and I think the good thing about Corona is that video conferencing now actually works, and remote working, remote collaboration has really improved by this.
Thank you, Ralf. How people can find you?
So just Google Daschug. This is the easiest way about our webpage. As said, we are located in Darmstadt, but we are also serving people all over in Germany. I think we have the client which is most far away is in Los Angeles. So this is it's also interesting customer from a gaming industry. I think, as said, video conferencing works, and presence is not necessary always. I like to be at the site of my clients, and this is why a lot of our clients are, let's say, 100, 200 kilometers around Darmstadt and Frankfurt.
Thank you, Ralf. Thank you for your inputs.
Thank you for having me and inviting me to your podcast. And go ahead with this. It's a very nice podcast.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.